Hey, welcome back everybody to another episode of RPG Jam Sessions. I am Uncle Jeff, and I'm joined by my good friend, Mr. Brian.
Ryan,
Welcome back, dude.
thank
It's
you. Good to be back.
it's good not to be alone anymore. I was uh,
Solo jamming.
solo jamming, man. You know, it's kind of cool. Like if you're in like on the side of the in like a downtown street or something, or in a subway, and you've got that mystique about you, but I don't have any mystique.
Yeah.
I really don't. I don't have the soul of a blues man. I wish I did. That's why I picked up the guitar at 16 and then put it right back down at 18. I tried. I still play, but I try. How you doing, man? How are the holidays? How was the new year?
Very good. Time with family and took a little bit of break from some other projects. Got a lot of board gaming in, and
Cool.
that was a good time.
Was there a board game that stuck out in your head that you totally adored?
Yeah, well, we got Lords of Waterdeep for Christmas, and I'd heard such good things, and I just hadn't picked it up. I kind of went on a hadn't gotten any new games in a while. We were in our last year overseas. Wasn't picking anything up because I knew I was going to have to come right back, and
I'm not bringing this back with me.
and I put that one on the list because I all these reviews I kept hearing over and over, guys saying, yeah, it's like my wife's favorite game. And I was like, boy, there's something. I heard it enough that I went, I should check this out. And we played it, and we're not even halfway into the game, and my wife is like, this is great.
That's
And
cool.
she has proceeded to trounce me over and over, which means it comes out to the table all the time. So
Nice.
so hey, any game that makes it to the table is a good game in my opinion.
So like when you get home, like the clarion call goes out. Brian, would you like some humility tonight?
Luckily she's not that bad. I'm usually like, do you want to play? She's like, yes. And then we
No.
get done,
Do you want to play?
you know.
That's cool, man. I've played it twice, 3 times, and every single time I enjoyed it. The third time, I say 3 times because we didn't finish the game. We had to actually end early.
It's simple. It's just a simple worker placement with a
Yeah.
Nice little Dungeon and Dragon theme on there. She doesn't get any of the references. It's just, I'll take 2 oranges and a black, and I think that's great too. That it's like, hey, if you want to dive into the theme and 3 clerics and my rogue, and they're gonna, or you're like, oh, I'm gonna complete. I get 12 points and I beat you. So it's a great game.
It doesn't make sense. Why would I have all rogues in my hand? That makes no sense. But in a game, it could.
Yeah,
It feels like good. That's a whole nother story.
yeah.
For me, myself, the holidays were busy. Were super busy. I got a chance to get out of town. Totally got out of Dodge. Went to the mountains. Enjoyed a little bit of snow. And for those who don't know already, I'm in Southern California, so I see like about that much of snow every year. But it's always a delight because I used to live in Illinois. I lived south of Chicago for about 2 years, so I kind of miss it. And it's because I haven't been around it so long that I don't know to dread it. Yeah. So we had some fun. It was just me and my wife and my dog, and just having fun up there. And but I managed to squeeze in a game of D&D with you and the rest of the crew on of Minds and Biscuits game, and then we started our session 0 with Numenera. So
I'm excited to hear how that one goes.
And we recorded it and everything, so I'm waiting for Perna to like put it together and get posted up, because we had so much fun. I mean, I don't normally have as many laughs during a session 0 as I did then, normally because I'm planning and I'm the GM, and I'm trying to I'm taking everything in, right? I want to get all the information so I can create all of the things that are going to come after you because of this information. And it was so nice to be a player and just kind of like, okay, man, this is how you drive a GM crazy. It's just so much fun. No wonder many players do it. I love it. So yeah, lots of fun. So yeah, coming to a YouTube channel near you, Numenera. So
that sounds fun. Sounds like you got a good crew, and it's clear that Mike has a passion for the system too.
Yes,
just hearing him talk. So I think that'll be great too. I'm excited to I'd love to tinker around with that cipher system. I think it's got some really
It,
cool elements.
it's it's really interesting. I hadn't thought about it in the terms of how story based and how narrative based it could be. I've sold myself down the road for so long with the Apocalypse World engine that this is the end all be all of narrative driven role play.
Yeah.
That I let that infect all of the other games that I play. And when I started picking up the rules for Numenera, I realized, oh, I really don't have to do that at all. It has it in spades right here. So
Yeah.
um, it's cool. I had a lot of fun, and I haven't really put the game through its paces yet. I've seen a couple of actual plays, but I haven't really seen it in action. So I'm still in that intrigued phase.
Yeah.
That intrigued.
Yeah. I've
phase,
never seen it really take any heavy gameplay, but it seems it's either gonna, that whole, it's a level 5, so it's just this stuff is simple and easy.
Mm-hmm.
That narrative making it easier for the GM on the fly a little bit. This is a level 4 difficult, and whatever that means. I think that's either gonna just keep making it better and better, or it might get a little tired after a while. It'll be interesting to see how it holds up. So
Yeah, I'm used to levels for so long. I'm used to levels,
Yeah.
so and they have tiers, which is great, and it kind of expands kind of like a tree a little bit as far as the things that you're capable of doing. But yeah, it'll be new. It'll be new. So I got a chance to do that, and then right before the broadcast here, we were talking a little bit about Rogue One, and I already went nuts last episode about how much I enjoyed the film. But I think we hadn't had a chance to really get into it on the last episode because we was me and I didn't have anybody to talk to, so I didn't want to sit there and do a full movie review.
And I hadn't seen it at that point. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking that what we could do is right here, right now, let's lay out the line that there could be potential spoilers, going forward, because I'd like to use Rogue One as a touchstone for the topic we're on this episode, which is Sandboxing Day. It's the complete antithesis to organization. It is now organized chaos, and that is the sandbox role playing theory, I guess. I don't know if that's a good way to use it or method, but
almost somewhere halfway in there.
Yeah. So we may use Rogue One just a little bit here and there as kind of a touchstone. So I want to make sure that I don't accidentally let loose a spoiler and ruin the movie for anybody. So if you haven't seen the film, go and see it. Come back, watch our episode here, and then we'll move forward. So warning is given. There we go. But sandboxing. So I'll turn it to you. What does that mean to you? If you were going to have a sandbox game, if you were going to put that into 3 sentences or something like that, how would you describe it?
Yeah. Well, as the new GM, I'm like, okay, am I going to get this right or wrong? No. From my perspective, the concept of playing a sandbox style is one in which, you might maybe to compare it versus a non-sandbox where the player characters don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but the GM likely does. With obvious caveats, so he doesn't know how the characters are going to react, but he has a big idea. Whereas a sandbox seems like nobody really knows what's going to happen. It almost is a way for everybody to be along for the ride, so to speak. And it's a way of the GM presenting scenarios and reacting to the players quickly. And, and if the players say, you know what, we're in the middle of this mission and this is no longer worth it. We're out of here. Let's get out of here. Let's drop it and run. Well, I'm not fighting this dragon. Let's get out of here, or whatever.
We invested 1,000 gold for a 100 gold job. It's over.
Yeah, it's over. We're out of here. That they can do that, and that the GM says, sure, no problem. Where do you want to go? Or what do you do? And finding those. But I think there's an element of, I'm way past my 3 sentences, by the way.
It was a suggestion. That's okay. We're sandboxing it. It's fine.
Yeah, so it's that idea of being able to adapt and let the players have a bit more autonomy and control over what they want to do.
Right.
But it also, and this is maybe, is it a method or a theory or whatever? It's where the GM, in how they present things, is it completely random? Do they let the players go wherever and do whatever they want, or do they provide guidance? And how they can present that so that it's not, like you said. I think you mentioned on a previous one of our talks where the sandbox being that there's boundaries. It's not unbounded. It's not without rules or structure. But it's very non-linear in that sense. It's not without, in fact, there may be an element of it's something to chat about, is that for a sandbox to run well, I think you almost need, in some ways, more structure, not more structure, but a different type of structure. You need a robust set of sort of resources and materials to really run a sandbox well. You can't just be making it up on the fly. I don't think that's not what I would mean by sandboxing. I'll just do this. Yeah, that it's a different method, but that it still has form and structure and recognizable features that aren't all that different than a campaign system might be.
And that's a good point. And it's not all that different from a regular campaign. I think when I first started dabbling in the idea of doing a sandbox game, it was when I was opening up the idea of playing Shadowrun First Edition with my old gaming group. We'd been away from the game for a long time, or any game for that matter, and we decided to get back together and start playing again. And we thought, well, let's kind of recapture what we started this off with, and so we went with Shadowrun. And I had a couple of the old adventure modules. I thought these were like super cool. They're well written. Why the heck not just use them? But as they started like playing in the game, we have different sensibilities now. We have different thought processes, and they started going off track pretty quick. One of the characters that I had, we had started playing around with an NPC ended up being more entertaining for them, and they're like, well, let's find out more about this person. So they go off and they do that. But the lesson that I took away from that is that I said, let's take a couple of weeks off, because I was honest. I said, you know what, we've been friends for 20 years, and you guys are going in a place I never thought you would. So I need some time to kind of prep, and somebody else run a game for next week, and then that'll give me a couple weeks to prep. And long story short, I learned that the background and the backdrop becomes more of a character in a sandbox. The environment can be every much as important narrative wise as a player character or an important NPC or whatever. If a place is a snow-driven ice planet or a desert planet, when you go to a place like Tatooine, in again in the Star Wars universe, it evokes a certain emotion. It evokes the not just the memories of what we experienced during A New Hope, but it also evokes the idea of the grit and the desperation and the idea that you're willing to do anything to survive. You're actually building machines to try and draw the moisture out of the air. I mean, for crying out loud, it's everything that you can do to survive. So that was my big thing when I started working with a sandbox type system, or a methodology was to really make the backdrop a character, and that helps with those boundaries that you're talking about. But like you said, there's a sandbox, and there's a box around our heads right here. You need to have those boundaries. If they want to go off into the negative zone or something like that, it's okay, we could do that, but we're gonna need to give me a little bit of time to prep something, and that's no harm, no foul. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the boundaries are super important. So when I was thinking of Rogue One, and when we were looking, we talked a little bit before the show here, and one of the things that really grabbed me was the idea that there's no crawl, there's no story crawl at the beginning. I'm sitting here, I see the Lucasfilm thing, and I like grab Angela's hand. I say, remember, it's going to get really super loud suddenly. So blah, I'm waiting for the trumpet fanfare, right? Nothing. It just drops you right in the middle of the action. That medias res thing that we've started to really use a lot in games these days, that I think is just amazing. But it does what, and I said this before, it does what every good Star Wars movie or show does, and that is that it hints at, it doesn't have to tell, but it hints at a very large universe. There are so many things out there to explore. And so, we got a chance to explore. I think there was upwards, what was it, like 5 different planets?
5 or 7 or something like that.
It was ridiculous. I mean, we got to go and see
20 minutes or something,
Yeah. And so the concept that, you could be, literally jet setting from one planet to the next, whatever, or taking a horse from one kingdom to the next. I think with the boundary, the backdrop becomes a map. It becomes that ability to say, okay, there's things out there. When I was building a map a little while ago for a dungeon world game that I was putting together, I had a couple of cities that I knew they were going to start in. Southold is a city that plays large in the games that I set up in most cases. But outside of that, there's other cities, and I've put little marks on the map where something happened here. I don't know what it is, but something happened here, and that's an opportunity to go and explore. So how do we manage this, right? You're new to this, but you've already embarked on a very a very arduous journey that I am completely impressed by. We mentioned it a little bit, Triumph and Despair. It was one of the sites that we had linked a couple, 2-3 episodes back. And you're doing something with that. I'm going to switch screens here so that y'all at home can see what I'm talking about. Let me bring that up here. All right. Give me one moment, folks. There we go. All right. So this is something that he's doing now. He has... I'm going to turn over to you. Go, Brian.
Well, which screen did you go to? I can't see.
Oh, that's true. That's right. We're not screen sharing. I'm looking at the Edge of the Empire alphabet, and I'm right at the very top.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm just looking at that table of contents, and so yeah. How do you want to describe?
Yeah.
That?
So, in running, a Star Wars Fantasy Flight game right now. I'm running one in sort of Age of Rebellion, and I liked the idea of sort of modding my campaign. And we talked, in the first jam session, I think, about the funnel, right? Where I was trying to give them lots of options, but the more I was thinking about things and looking for further resources, I'm just getting more and more intrigued with this idea of being able to go anywhere, let them do let the players do what they want to do. And stumbled on this Triumph and Despair blog. If you play the Fantasy Flight Star Wars games and you've never been there, you have to go. It's unbelievable the amount of resources he has. But he essentially created a sandbox, a full set of rules that he's using this Edge of the Empire alphabet, where he was writing posts for every letter of the alphabet and cycled through some of them 3 or 4 posts, but almost every one is a little snippet of the universe, the setting, the characters, the drives, the motivations, whatever, where he comes up with, a way that it can be implemented, and then a table or 7 or something. Some of them have tons of tables, and it's just some different things. And what I really love is he'll often have concurrent tables where you might roll twice and get two different adjectives or something, or an adjective and a noun. So it adds even more randomness. You're just, whatever that might be. And what was really cool was, what I loved about this one, at least, was one of the driving factors that he was talking about was discovering new worlds, and talked about Rogue One, the hint of this universe out there. And he's like, his point was, we shouldn't just be going to Tatooine and Hoth and Coruscant, to these 5 to 7 or 8 or whatever planets that we've seen over and over again. There's millions of them out there. And in the lore itself, there's planets even within we're not talking even outer rim, but there's planets that aren't even discovered yet, right? Like, space is just so big. And so his whole idea was, he came up with just a roll to see where they might land up in the universe or in the galaxy, Oh, and here you land here, and then there's a whole other set of tables for describing a planet. He's got another table with like thousands of names of planets. Get a name, get some descriptions. Here it is on the galactic map.
Right.
And then go. And then he's pairing that with a way to generate for Edge heists. Because that's sort of this smugglers, bounty hunters. He's got a whole little table for doing heists. He's got another one for side quests for like player development and stuff like that. But he just sort of took those major elements and went, where are you going to be? What are you going to be doing? And then he's got a bunch of other stuff that's really cool for flavor. But it really sort of just captured me, and I went, oh yeah, I'm like, this intrigues. This is how I would want to play. Like, it's sort of every session you're going to a new planet. You've never been there before. Right. And so in that sense, it sort of, to me, evokes that idea of like a dungeon world where we're kind of creating this world as we go, and giving your PCs a chance to, and as you come down to the planet, what do you see? Giving them some of that agency to create the environment even, or, make some of those NPCs come alive. And, he's in this one, I was just enamored by how none of it, and no one part is mind blowing. It's just that he thought of the scope. And for me, working through it, and I'm reading it, reformatting, tweaking, adding some stuff, really is an exercise in how might you sandbox a world. And I thought it was so cool that he took Star Wars, a world that we think we know all about, and went, hey, you don't have to make up even more cool stuff. So yeah, really intriguing. And it's, for me, the wheels are turning. Okay, how do I do this for Middle Earth now? And, when I want to play Adventures in Middle Earth next, and, how do I do that? And, or what do you do this for dungeons or something, whatever it is. But it's a Herculean task. I've been editing that document for over a month now, just little bits here and there, and I'm on cue, so I'm still not done yet. And
just for the folks at home, that's what I'm kind of displaying here, just kind of running through a few things, is the one that he's put together. That's not a disclaimer, but it's a cautionary tale about how deep you can go into this stuff. There's a big thing here of how some GMs, I've done this myself, can really get carried away with how much they build and how much they create. The place where I've seen a couple of places where I've seen this really succeed, this style of play, is sometimes when a GM sets up shop at a friendly local game store, and they aren't always going to get the same players every single time. But what he can do is he can have this backdrop. He can have tools like what you're working with here and say, okay, well, my group 2 months ago, they went to this planet called, whatever. And that particular planet, whatever, had, liquid hot magma, but also had these intriguing little stone formations. And those stone formations were turned into starports and, whatever the case is. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, this group had created this and they were looking for something and they didn't feel like creating something. Well, now all of a sudden you can start using that for this other group. And then they can start kind of riffing on that and bringing more to the table. So I've seen in one big way I've seen that succeed is in a situation like that where, you're not always going to have the same consistent players, but you could have a consistent world or a consistent universe that continues to grow organically based on the players that are around the table. You may go a session where nothing gets written and it may be just all you describing things, but that's okay, no big deal. But that's the flexibility of having this type of a game style. So and then the other way I've seen it succeed is on various programs. We were talking about ItMeJP. They had a D&D sandbox style thing that they had running for a long time called the West Marches, which was again, that ability to kind of build the map organically with multiple groups and stuff. And it lends itself to online play because, again, you're not always going to have the same group available. And I'm very intrigued about the possibility of doing something like that in Middle-earth. So I hope you do continue to pursue that.
Well, we'll see. They may be coming to InnRoads soon. We'll see.
Oh, that'd be so awesome. So awesome. Well, you know what? Other tools that I've used just to kind of get some more stuff out there. We've got Triumph and Despair, and then if things start looking really good, you're on the queues. You're almost done with this, about 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way. So maybe we can get this available for InnRoads on the Tavern.
Absolutely.
We can get that available for folks to use, and I've come across a few things that I've used in the past. One of those is with a game called Stars Without Number. We played that during the summer one-shots. And there are these things called factions, and there's varying degrees of how detailed you want to get. They have tables and stuff like you were talking about building planets, that sort of thing. But then there's also the factions that are on that planet and how you want to put those together. And the cool thing that I liked about it is that it gives you a methodology, and I've ported this to multiple games. They give you a methodology of like your own kind of mini game as a game master in putting together how these factions move around in the known universe. Your players may never go to this particular planet, right? But on that planet there is a very ambitious crime lord that has reached their hand off-world and started impacting the space lanes. And now all of a sudden, they are an influence on the players because now they're impacting them in transit somewhere. So, and that may not happen given how that little mini game goes behind the scenes. So there's ways to amass wealth, there's ways to amass, cunning, there's ways to amass force, and you use those in kind of almost a chess game with yourself type thing to see how they react. So it kind of a cool way to keep things organic in the game, keep things interesting for yourself, but more importantly for your players, because they go to a planet, do something there, maybe they set off a chain reaction, they leave, and now you've got to figure out how does that faction react to the fact that their most precious holocron was stolen or something to that effect. Things change. There was a rebellion. The central portion of their faith has been removed. Now all of a sudden there's an uprising and you return to a burned out planet. So things like that. So it keeps. I think that's one really big benefit of a sandbox style is that as a GM, you're kind of almost inclined to keep track of those things behind the scenes. So Stars Without Number takes it to a new level. Kind of can get a little complex, but they have character sheets for your factions that you can put together, and you can use character sheets for your planets and even your sectors that you could use in other games. And then another one that I've used is Dungeon World. I'll go back to that, and they have what's called fronts. That's kind of built off of the Apocalypse World engine in their first edition there. And the cool thing that I like about this is that you create dangers. So you create certain instances of things that might happen if this particular front either comes into power or is messed with or whatever. And the what I really like is what's called impulses. It's almost like their basics, their beliefs, instincts, and goals. But what are their impulses for this faction? If it's a thieves guild, the impulse is to lift things from people with dexterity, and they're not, or maybe it's an assassin's guild or whatever. So just various tools. And the cool thing is that with Stars Without Number, the rules and stuff like that for faction building and maintenance is actually free. You can get that at DriveThruRPG. They have a free version of the core rulebook, and those faction rules and everything, even the character sheets, are in the back of that book, and you can use those to your heart's delight. And then even the core rulebook is like $24 or something like that for PDF. And then for Dungeon World, I think the price is varied from $10 to $15. So
something like that.
Yeah, so it gives you a good framework of how you would want to build things out.
Oh yeah, for
sure.
I mean, part of the thing I'm finding interesting is, it, like you'd mentioned, that the setting itself is so key to this style of play that it does change. I mean, if you're doing a Star Wars, it's going to be very different. You're not going to be able to take any of those tables and use them in Middle Earth or use them in the Forgotten Realms or something like that. And so, it's you really do have to stop and think about, what are the key elements that will make a good story in this setting. In Star Wars or in a space sort of theme, it's going to cool planets and seeing new stuff and cool ships and cool tech, and so like making sure you bring those things in. Whereas, if it's Lord of the Rings or something in Middle Earth, you need cool sword battles and you need these sort of cryptic, mystic messages and tasks and I'm rereading Lord of the Rings right now, and it's cracking me up how they just keep running into all these people who are really, really old, and it's like, do they find everybody who is old in the story, or
everybody's a freaking lore master around here?
Bombadil and Elrond and Galadriel and the Gandalf and Treebeard, and I'm like, oh boy, this is
yeah.
But that was part of it. But like meeting these sort of mysterious people is really important.
For sure.
Whereas and it depends on how you want to do your D&D game, but that's D&D. You got to have cool monsters and cool magic and magical items and hordes and all sorts of stuff. But you really do have to stop and think, what kind of setting am I going to play in? And you get tied to that. And I think that's an interesting one that you have to really think, if you're going to pursue this, you're going to be stuck in your sandbox too, to a certain extent. You're going to put a lot of time in. And I really had to stop and consider, am I going to get enough games played in this to make it worth it? And I kind of went, I kind of think that this system, this Edge of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, that system, that I'll get a lot of leverage out of that system and using that. It's just so accessible, and I think I still, like, if I have a shot at getting any family to play, it's within that more than others at the moment.
And the cool thing too is that you're going to get a lot of mileage out of it, because you're going to get some hype out of it, because there's going to be a film almost every single year.
Yeah. So I'm like,
it's going to percolate again and again.
Yeah, that the system, I'm like, this is great, and then I thought, well, the nice thing about the sandbox is, if you do it, then you want to play a session right now, sure. All I need is my laptop. If I can get that, even my phone.
Sure.
If I can get that PDF. And let's go right now. We can play. And it's not zero prep. It's just I front loaded.
Yeah. There's a lot of front loading.
It's all front loading.
100%.
And you do that front loading, and then you say, let's see where this goes. I'm going along with you on this ride, um, and sort of seeing what happens. And so that you gotta weigh that cost. If you're like, well, I'm just dabbling in a system, don't don't dive in on the
Don't
sand.
do that. Yeah. And then, you know what? That's a really good point. Is finding a good system that manages it. I got really lucky with the one-shot scenario and using Dungeon World, and then gravitating over to D&D. It's all fantasy. It's all that kind of genre. Two different rule sets. One's very rules light. One's a little bit rules heavier. Not heavy, but a little bit more rules.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that I could, some of the sandbox stuff that I've been starting to put together for Dungeon World, I found could work quite well in D&D. If I don't want to get locked into things like Forgotten Realms or even Greyhawk, if I wanted to go back to that time, if you're willing to kind of go to the fringes of certain things and then keep that sandbox going, you could go across different game systems potentially. The onus, though, goes back to the GM of saying, okay, if I'm thinking there's a potential for this, what I did was I created my fronts, I created my threat levels, so to speak. Like what would it be like if a first level character faced these people versus a 10th level character, right?
Yeah.
So that I can at least have an average understanding of how difficult things are. And to your point, as long as you know the system, that you're going to go from one place to the next. So if I know Dungeon World and I know D&D, I know that I need to have this level of difficulty here for this, and then I need a CR of this for D&D. So if you know how to make the conversions, you'll be fine. But the system is important. Make sure that everybody's going to buy in on the system. If it's really accessible and popular, that helps. Edge of the Empire and all of the derivatives of that Fantasy Flight family is a great example of that. It looks weird because you've got strange dice with strange symbols and stuff. What is this? Runes? But it translates. In one session, even a simpleton like myself, I was able to get it. I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
no,
I got it.
30 minutes doing 4 or 5 skill checks, and you're like, oh, okay, I've got it. And it's it's great.
Yeah. No, I think that's cool. That's a big key. Is we spoke about this a little bit in the last episode. Is if you're wanting to go off on a limb and change things up, because of hype, one of the things I warned about is make sure that the system is something that the group is going to be agreeable with. So that applies here too. Work with the system. If there's things that you can port in from other systems that will help you as a GM, do it. Don't hesitate. There's nothing wrong with grabbing and swapping, and whether it's ideas or rules or whatever, bring it in. If you think it's going to help your players have a good time or help you have a good time, do it. Just go for it. So well, cool. You know what? I'm really happy to have you back here to actually have a discussion. It looks really weird when I'm talking to myself. But we move on from those types of things, and we come back to sanity. So it's good to have you here. You'll be having your next game here coming up shortly. So
soon, and not this weekend, but the next. Yeah,
looking forward to it, man.
So I'm hoping we can wrap it up in 1 or 2 more sessions. Probably don't think they'll get all the way. Take the base in one session, but you never know. They are big on the explosions, so they might go in and blow a hole in the wall and shoot everybody down. And
I give the Jawa 5 thermal detonators and tell them to go onto the exhaust port.
So I don't know. It might just be 1, but I'm planning on 2, and then we'll be on to the next. Figure out what's next.
Absolutely, very cool. All right. Well, as always, it's a great pleasure having you all along for the ride. We appreciate you watching, sticking around, and finding out more about what we have to offer. I hope this information is going to help you around your table to get more confidence. And, as a new game master, even as somebody who's been around the block for a while like myself, some of these things can help you out. So we hope that's exactly what's happened. So get out there, play some games, make some friends around the table that could potentially last a lifetime.